William Eggleston is a name that you've probably come across if you like photography and you like film photography. Well, I hope so if you're on this channel. He has been coined as the world's best worst photographer, which I completely disagree with, but we'll go over that at the later stages of the video. Throughout the video, I'll go over who he is, what his works are, and how he's inspired me as a photographer and can hopefully inspire you. So William Eggleston is known for increasing the legitimacy of colour photography as like an artistic art form. At the time of prime Eggleston, black and white photography was the main form of photography, and not many people liked colour photography. Well, he was born in 1939, so it wasn't really around very much. The only time that colour photography was used was mainly for commercial works. He challenged the idea of black and white photography and wanted to add colour photography as an artistic art form, and he was persistent with this. He used a process of dye transfer, which was used mainly in the commercial works to bring colour to life in his imagery, and the colours in his images were just beautiful because of this. Eggleston's approach to photography is what we would consider in the more social media age as the art of noticing. He would find things that he thought were beautiful and he would document this. Whether others would see these scenes as beautiful was another question, but that's what made his work so brilliant and so diverse, because the range in the scenes that he was photographing was so diverse. And this is an approach to photography that I am trying to kind of bring on myself as well and do the same thing. And if you want to see my attempt at this approach over time, my Instagram is at Grenney Creates if you want to see any of the images, and fingers crossed you like them. I personally think that this is where he's coined as the best worst photographer, because so many of his images are absolutely amazing, and some of his images I also look at and go, what? Like, how has somebody found that as beautiful? But that is the beauty in the art of his approach. It is so subjective to whether you like it. I like it. I might see an image of Eggleston's and go, oh my god, that's amazing, and you might look at it and go, what the hell? What is that? Like, that is the approach to his work, and I think that's amazing. It is so subjective, and there is no deeper meaning. There is just simply, here's what I like, here's what I'm going to photograph, take it or leave it. And that is just an approach that I think many of us could do with, because you've made the art because you like the art, you've shared the art because you like what you've made, and that's what we all should really be caring about. Eggleston hates all things digital and technical in a sense, well, in a slight sense anyway. Rather than focusing on photography rules, he's been quoted saying that you become technically proficient whether you want to or not, the more pictures you take. Clearly quite a big believer in practice makes perfect. And if you are searching for these technical proficiencies and certain rules, then that is probably going to hinder your work and your workflow. So take more pictures and you'll probably find them in the work anyway. So rather thinking of the perfect image that you want to take with perfect compositions, or even the message that you want to convey, instead of using your brain and taking these pictures, use your heart instead, and I think you'll be quite surprised at what you get out of it. He's also been quoted in saying that you can take a good picture of anything and you can take a bad one too. And I think no matter what photography you're doing, that is so true. And no matter the high level of technical proficiency that you have, this is always going to happen. I might walk along, take a quick snapshot and get an amazing image where you might have spent hours and hours and hours to set up this small, like, tiny idiosyncrasy and this small, like, little section that, does it really matter? Probably not. It's only you that's ever going to know it. So use your heart as much as your head, but kind of lead with the heart the most. Now, when it actually comes to his photography approach, it is quite different to most. As most of you will either be on film or digital, you'll use a viewfinder, you might use a rangefinder style camera, you might even use the digital stuff where you use your LCD screen, or even the digital viewfinder itself. But Eggleston used a different approach. He kind of used cameras without the rangefinders and the viewfinders, which is kind of baffling to me. So his approach to some of his work was to use it as a shotgun approach. The camera, instead of looking through and having a look, it was kind of intuitive, which is very brave or stupid. I don't know how I feel on that. So he would hold the camera more to the waist and photograph like that, kind of take a snapshot and walk off. And this is just almost astounding to me that this is how someone would do photography, because he took some amazing images, and I think that's why he's so good, because it's kind of strange. And in addition to these shotgun approached images, he would also use kind of unexpected angles, or kind of just odd angles in general, where the subjects wouldn't really be interacting with the image, in the sense that they're not looking at the camera. So it kind of felt like he wasn't there. He was kind of documenting a process, whether it was staged or not. It was almost felt really like real life, that these people were off doing their day-to-day thing, and he was kind of just showing that, kind of like the Truman Show, if you've ever watched it, which is really quite cool. And this is something that I've tried to incorporate in my own work, and he has had such an influence on this. So showing where people are interacting and you're kind of in the shadows and you're taking pictures sounds a bit weird now, I'll put it like that, but it's much more harmless than it sounds. And with the illusion of him not being there, it created these raw, authentic moments that were either staged or not staged, who's to know, but these images are absolutely cracking. I spent quite a long time researching Eggleston's work at my time at uni when I was studying commercial photography, and commercial photography and William Eggleston's work doesn't kind of go hand in hand on a uni course, but I made it work. And he has had such an influence on my photography since then. I'm no longer trying to find the most technically proficient image in the world, but kind of, how can I photograph something in a way that I find genuinely beautiful and authentic? And in doing so, I am then documenting my life, how I see the world, and the people around it, and where I live. And this was the same for Eggleston. Photography to Eggleston was a way of documenting the world around him and finding beauty in those small mundane moments. And that is what related to me so much. I've been doing photography for a very long time, and when growing up with even the small digi cameras and even on my DS cameras back in the day, I was photographing the things that I found beautiful. And I lost this as I tried to go into the more of the commercial world and realised that that wasn't the photography for me. I've got into photography to document the world around me, to show people the beauty in the world around me, and rediscovering that in my own photography has been amazing. And that has come around because I found William Eggleston's work and realised that it's actually a proficient way to do photography, and if you do it well, it can be absolutely amazing. Obviously this is going to take time. I'm not exactly the technical photographer, nor have the exact eye for what I want to photograph, but I'm definitely getting there with practice. I've kind of sacked in the rules of thirds, I've sacked in the Fibonacci sequence and gone, right, that looks nice, how am I going to photograph it? And the more I do that, the better those images are going to become, because I'm not thinking when I'm looking at these images, I'm feeling how I can make them better. Don't get me wrong, these photographic processes like the rule of thirds and the Fibonacci sequence exist for a reason and should be used definitely more and more as you're getting into photography and you're wanting to explore how to maybe change it up a bit or explore it in a different manner. But there's a time for it to kind of be let go and use it intuitively instead. And this is where I have progressed so much. I've seen photography as a documentative process which I can project warmth and like a lovely cozy feeling into the world that I have. Obviously the world isn't always like that, but to find those small moments makes it so much more enjoyable. I've released the stress of going, oh my lord, that bit there is not perfect, or that I can see a small gap here, or there's a little bit of dirt in the background. Who cares? It's the human experience, and we all have our own different experiences and our own changes in life, and to be able to photograph this I think is a huge privilege, and to follow somebody's work like Eggleston's has been amazing for my own creative well-being. And with photographing and using him as inspiration, I don't copy his images. I will use his images as reference points, and I have done this quite a lot. And I think the best way to do this is to show you some examples. So let's take these two images. The one on the left is William Eggleston's and the one on the right is mine. This was a big inspiration image for my shot on the right, and I think that you can see the similarities, but it's not a carbon copy of. You can see the angle that I've shot the car. Yes, I'm considerably closer, but I had never shot cars before, so I was kind of unsure on angles, and I really like this one. Having it almost from the back of the car and then rotated around to the left as of shooting it, so you kind of shoot at a diagonal right in a way towards the car. This is something that I wanted to emulate when I was photographing, and something that I think worked really well. And this is where inspiration is key over copying the images, because I took the angle of the shot that it was taken at and kind of worked an angle that I could work with whilst I was there. I shot with, I'm assuming, a different lens, I don't know. I used an 85mm prime, and from my research, 85mm primes weren't in Eggleston's workflow. I think it was the 28mm, the 50mm, and maybe 100mm, I'm not quite sure, but he used a plethora of stuff. So yeah, that's example number 1. Example number 2 are quite a stark difference, but believe me, they were actually inspiration points. So once again, Eggleston's image is on the left, my image is on the right, and I wanted to use a hand of somebody interacting with something within a scene. In Eggleston's shot, the light is coming into the image, the hand is cutting across, and you can see the shadow, and they're interacting in some sorts. My image is not as lavish because it's not on a plane with, it looks like possible cocktail of some sort, so I'm not quite sure. Mine's in a garden centre picking up some cactus little holders. So yes, the subject matter is different, but it was used as inspiration because of the angles and everything again that it was shot at. Instead of the light coming in across, the light is coming in from the left hand side and still creating some really nice shadows for my image, which I still think is very, very nice, and I'm quite happy with it. Obviously not as lavish, but the inspiration is still there. And the final comparison is fairly similar. The subject of the image is different, but the setup is very, very similar. So with Eggleston's image on the left, there is a table and there is some, assuming like some sauces and some pots and stuff from what I can see. And in my image, there's a person on a bed, but the positioning of everything is fairly similar. I wanted to have the light coming through and hitting the subject and creating a shadow behind her. In a sense, I kind of achieved that, not as well as I was hoping, but this was all driven from how the stylistic approach of the Eggleston shot was. With the way that the Eggleston image is shot, there is a bit more of like a bloom with the lighting, and it kind of phases across in a tighter area, and that is purely because of the settings and the way it was shot. This was something that I wasn't able to achieve because the lighting wasn't that strong coming through the window, but once again, the inspiration was there. I've used the composition of the shot, whether he dressed the shot purposefully or not, I don't know, but this is how I intended to shoot my images. All of the images shown in that mini section and throughout the rest of the video are from the William Eggleston Art Foundation, and if you'd like to know how to support some of his works and the charities that they support, I'll leave a link down below. I hope throughout the video you have seen many different ways in which William Eggleston kind of transformed photography, has transformed my photography, and I hope there's a few tips that you can take that can improve your own photography. And if you'd like to see my photography journey, follow me on Instagram at Grenney Creates and click that subscribe button down below. Leave a like as well whilst you're there, and even turn on notifications. This is one of my first videos of talking about specific photographers that have inspired me, and it'll probably be the first of many because I've really enjoyed making this video. So once again, follow me on Instagram, like and subscribe down below, and use my code Grenney in all capitals on the Dehancer website to save 10% off on your purchases. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.